Hello and good morning. My name is Stacy. I work with the Family Resource Navigators here in San Leandro, California. I want to thank you for joining me today. Um, uh, for more information about building decision-making skills for supported decision making. The freedom to make decisions, even decisions that might have adverse consequences, is fundamental to the personal autonomy and self determination of people with disabilities. Decision making by people with intellectual disabilities, the importance of self determination. This comes from the Disability Rights of Pennsylvania, and we have adapted some of their material in understanding and learning and teaching myself, my family, to support my son in making his own decisions, supported decision making. Not everyone wants to be an independent or interdependent decision maker. However, for some people with disabilities, the choice of being their own decision maker may be more difficult than their neurotypical peers because they have never been offered the education or the experience to become a decision maker. Skill building in decision making may not be offered because some may view students with an intellectual or developmental disability as incapable of making the right choice. Part of becoming a decision maker is embracing the perspective that everyone makes mistakes and not one makes the right decision every time. So that's just for us as example. We have made bad decisions, we have made bad choices, but we've learned from our mistakes. How did we learn from that mistake? Because we were given the opportunity to make the decision that may not have been the right one, but we've learned from it. We give our neurotypical children the opportunity to make mistakes and decisions as they grow old, even though we talk with them about it, the same thing that should be happening with the person with disabilities. We should have those conversations with them as well and allowing them to strengthen the muscles of understanding how to use supporters and be able to make some decisions in their lives. Presuming competence, the challenge of ambulism, and low expectations. I say that word all the time and it gets me every time. Adults often make decisions for children, youth, adults with disabilities, and this can lead to a learned helplessness. This can turn into a situation where people with developmental disabilities rely on their parents or caregivers to make decisions for them. Learned helplessness, believing you have no control, leading to reliance on others for problem solving. Presuming competence means starting out with the expectation that everyone can learn if provided the accessible tools. So learning objectives. A major obstacle to using supported decision making that people with disabilities often lack experience or training as decision makers. This workshop examines some key components of decision making skills and offers ideas to help people with disabilities strengthen those skills. Participants will become familiar with skills necessary to be an effective decision maker. Participants will learn some suggested ways to develop these skills and embed them in their IEPs or in their IPP. Decision making is a learned skill for everyone, even our neurotypical children, as well as us as adults. A person with disability, children, youth, or adults can build these skills at home or at school. Skill building can be incorporated into individual education plans and IEP or individual program plans and IPP. This workshop reviews some of the components of building decision-making skills and suggests goals, activities for both the novice and the more advanced decision makers. Again, this can start from the IEP. It can start as early as 8th grade, even before, but this gives the person with disabilities the opportunity to be involved in their IEP or their IPPs with the regional centers, and that they can have their voice heard and what they would like, not to push off on our agenda and what we think would be best for them. But in some situations, that is, it's okay. There's no wrong decision. We just want to educate everyone and get us up to speed so that we can honor and respect the person with disabilities so that they can have a long lived life. And all the way from the beginner, you can start using supported decision making in any area of your life. Decision making is more than settling on a choice. It's a process of identifying what needs to be done, how it can be achieved, along with reflection and motivations and consequences. When a person has good decision making skills, they have reasonable expectations about their actions or non actions will do, and they understand why certain actions are best for their well being and their concerns of others. So they definitely will be thinking about how it will impact the people in their lives, but also how it will impact them. We're talking about the pros and cons and have reasonable expectations, you know? Uh, we talk about everything in the decision making, allowing the person with disabilities to be engulfed in the conversation and to be involved in making some decisions or all decisions in their lives with the help of supporters. Um, and why is developing supported decision making skills is very important. Here's a link down below. And the importance is that we're not here forever as parents, caregivers, guardians, supporters. And we want to be able to make sure that our loved one with disabilities are in a place where they can make decisions, have a supported team, and have a long life, a long, healthy life. So that is the main goal. Sorry, guys, I have to. Mm, thank you. We had a little emergency. I was going to lose you guys. So, some steps in decision making process independently or interdependently or with supporters. So this is with like independently having some supporters or being able to make the decision themselves or being supported by their team, talking it over and, let's see how we can do this. Some decisions by the person with disabilities, and some maybe with mutual agreements. And then some may be completely supported in making some decisions. So, identifying there is a decision to be made and what that decision is. And is that, or and that it is yours, the person with disabilities, to make. Gathering information about decisions, both in terms of what you think and feel, and information from the other people or online sources. Identify the alternatives about the choices available, which can include new choices that the person with disabilities create. Evaluate the choices based on what you value and feel is important, as well as what you think may happen as a result of the choices. Choose the alternative that seems best for you and take action on your choice. And that's the person with disabilities. Observe the results of your decision and consider whether you need to make a change. And this can be done with your team of supporters. That's what they're for, to help the person with disabilities weigh out all these different options and what they can help. And this is what it's for the supporters. You can write down some of these choices of how to have a conversation with the person with disabilities and in making decisions. Some learned skills that can help with decision making: critical thinking, emotional awareness, and communication. So the supporter is there to help the person with disabilities go through the critical thinking portion of it. And then we're supposed to support the emotional portion and be aware of when it's becoming a little bit overwhelming for them and they need to maybe take a break, go to a different topic, and come back and revisit it. What type of communication do they have? Are they using AAC devices? What type of communication? And we have to honor and respect that and give that information to the person with disabilities in plain language that they understand, no matter how it comes, what they're using to communicate with. So, decision making skills, let's talk about critical thinking and gathering information. A decision maker starts by realizing that there is a decision that needs to be made and gathering information to help them make this decision. Some of this information gathered will be about the choices available and the consequences. Some gathering involves checking in with goals of the person with disabilities, preferences of the person with disabilities, and their emotions behind making this decision, as these are important to make decisions. These examples in making decisions, doing critical thinking with the person with disabilities, this is how it really helps them in understanding the decisions and weighing the pros and cons. People can learn how to gather information as an IEP or an IPP goal, or to get help from others to gather that information and to talk to them about it. Again, supported decision making is about supporting the person with disabilities, their decisions, but helping them weigh the pros and cons, gathering the information so that they can actually, you're having a critical conversation with them and you're thinking about it critically. And then, you're talking about all the different options, the good and the bad, and how can that pan out for them. But ultimately, the decision is on the person with disabilities. Decision-making skills, critical thinking, evaluation. Decision makers analyze and evaluate their choices and the outcomes they think will result, as well as the trustworthiness of the different information that they have gathered. Critical thinking can be learned through activities like classifying, comparing, and contrasting, open-ended questions, and decoding cause and effect and relationships. Experience making decision helps people develop a greater understanding of consequences, as well as rather to trust the information from different sources. So again, it's you're just helping them weigh the pros and cons, and it strengthens the muscles of critical thinking for people with intellectual or developmental disabilities in making decision and understanding good and bad choices, pros and cons, and the end result. So decision-making skills, emotional awareness, intelligence. We can't stress this enough. Recognizing and managing emotions are essential aspects of decision. Emotions can motivate decisions, and emotions can provide feedback on whether a decision was good or a good one or not. Emotions can also sway people's decisions away from their own goals, especially if the decision maker lacks self-confidence and is influenced by others. People pleasers, pressures, and or bullying, as well as manipulation and persuasion. People can learn to be aware of these emotions and how feelings may influence their decisions. This may involve learning to recognize different emotions and understanding the link between feelings and choices. So, again, having conversations with the people that we love, like checking in, understanding their emotions. Are we at a space where we're feeling? Is this a feeling or is this an emotion? And supporters, excuse me, supporters are supposed to be able to support this critical thinking and be aware of how and what space the person is emotionally with disabilities and how they're perceiving the conversation. Are they coming from their feelings, or are they talking more from making choices? Again, they are not supposed to be manipulated, persuaded, bullied, no peer pressure. It's not about what we think. We're supposed to be having this conversation with the person with disabilities to be able to weigh the pros and cons of their decisions and learn, even if they make bad choices. We're not going to let them take high risk choices, but learning from some of those decisions that may not have been a bad choice, a good choice, is a way for them to learn from their mistakes, just as we allow our neurotypical children as well as ourselves to learn from our mistakes. Communication. Decision makers communicate their decisions and the types of support they may want or need when making this decision. Decision makers may want to practice asking questions to obtain the information that they are interested in before making a decision. Conversations, critical thinking, and supporting the emotions while doing that process with the person with disabilities. For some people, their communication needs can include learning to ask for help or say no to people when offered to help when they don't want it. Allowing the person with disabilities to make the decision, even when we feel it's not a good decision, we want to insert our thoughts in our decisions. No. Nope, nope, nope. We got to give the person with disabilities the chance to say they need help or they don't want help. And again, it's their choice. It's their choice. So learning communication skills are common goals for families and schools to work on. So anyone can start working on decision-making skills at any time. Appropriately tailoring decision-making experiences is one of the best ways to help people build self-determination and self-confidence. Progressive learning and decision-making skills can be incorporated into everyday home activities and into individual educational plans at school. While every person's needs are unique to them. But this workshop reviews some examples of activities, goals for novice as well as more advanced decision makers. So beginning decision makers or novice. Some beginning decision makers may feel uncertain, uncomfortable, or even anxious about making their own decisions. Some ideas for learning strategies and supports are: use books and stories or social stories to illustrate and discuss the decision-making process, including gathering information, making choices, and the emotional effects of those choices on the decision makers and others. Supporters can model, narrate their decision-making process, or on a regular basis. So you're practicing it, you're modeling it, you're narrating it for the person with disabilities so that they get it's repetitive, and repetition is how we learn. So doing this on a regular basis can definitely help and support the person with disabilities in learning how to build these skills. This could include others sharing their process, as well as acknowledging when they have made mistakes and explaining how they navigated through those. Everybody makes mistakes. But how do we get through that? What do we do? What did we do? in navigating the bad decision, and how did we get through it? Again, turning to the people in your community, the folks that you know, on their experience as well. So, ideas for beginners of decision makers. So, no to low risk decisions can be a great starting point for beginning decision makers, and make them short term. Offer independent, positive and negative consequences to the beginning decision maker, helping connect decisions to the consequences, talking about it, weighing out those pros and cons. What is the end result? So, bonded choices, choices between 2 or 3 predetermined options can be placed as a beginning marker. So we can give, if you've never practiced supported decision making or allowed the person with disabilities to have any voice, it's a good time to start. And you can start at any point. You can start with just giving them 2 to 3 places to predetermine options, like sitting in the IEP for the goals and the plans for their education, talking about who and where would they like support, basic small steps, small steps. So again, helping the beginner build their self-determination or supported decision-making skills. Offer genuine alternatives. Too often people with disabilities are offered a limited choice between compliance and non-compliance. Rather than between the alternatives they can consider important or desirable. Provide scaffolding for the process. Make space that is appropriate for the decision maker. So we're going grocery shopping, and instead of wanting to get stuff for a healthy meal, for a care provider or someone to prepare for them, even if they can do it themselves, they'd rather come home with a box of noodles, cereal, peanut butter and jelly. But here's an opportunity to have a conversation about eating healthy for long life and other options that may be available for them. You have Meals on Wheels that prepare healthy food for a week for people that are unable to prepare food for themselves. There's cooking classes for individuals who may want to cook and have the ability to learn cooking skills, and that is one of their desires. Find a cooking class, allow them to do the cooking class, strengthen those skills in those areas. So, how do we assist a beginner in supported decision making? Experience matters. Most people learn they learn best from experience, both positive as well as negative. Debriefing decisions help decision makers learn from the process. What did you do to make this decision? What was the outcome, whether it was good or bad? How did you determine that you were going to make the decision on this area? With the support of others. Provide emotional support. To decision makers as they build their skills and their confidence. It's going to be challenging for some of the older or transitioning youth into adulthood that's never given this opportunity to have some anxiety about making decisions or if they made the right decision. And again, allowing them to know that everybody makes mistakes. There is no right or wrong decision, but also we're not going to let them take a high risk decision either. We're going to really talk with them about that, weigh out the pros and cons and the effects. So, more advanced decision makers. Most people learn decision making by making progressively more important and complex decisions and building their decision making skills. Once a person is comfortable with no or low risk and a short-term choices, the next step could be to move toward decisions that involve more risks and have longer time frames. So let's say it's a medical decision and they have to go for treatments every 2 weeks. They don't want, they want to know, why do I have to do this every 2 weeks? What are the benefits for me doing this every 2 weeks? Like, once you've mastered the low risk decisions, then they can go on to making more longer term decisions and a higher level of risk, such as medical. For the more advanced decision makers, as with all learning, decision making should suit the individual's needs, style, and pace. Some people are more willing to take risks than others, and some are more cautious. This can affect the types of decisions a person wants to make and how much support they want to have with their decisions. The decision maker and their supporters can determine the appropriate level of risk for the individual. Again, people with disabilities, I know that we pretty much have a good circle for our loved ones, our person of concern. So, talking about it, utilizing those people that we've already built these relationships with, and understanding what level of decisions are they able to do, and then just really helping them build on the skills. Please excuse me, I haven't had enough coffee. The skills of making decisions with the support of others, trusted others. So, so incremental steps as a strategy. Sometimes big and risky decisions can be broken into a series of smaller ones that are reversible or easily monitored. For example, rather than making all the decisions about their own health care, a person with disabilities may ask a supporter to check in with them regularly and help them monitor and assess how their choices are working. They can have someone who is going to help them monitor these decisions, and that they're not so high risk, but they can be reversible and easily monitored. So instead of doing everything at once, you can focus on just the healthcare decisions and how to support the person with disabilities. Managing risks, precautionary measures that may or may not be removed later can also reduce risks. For examples, the risk of traveling independently can be reduced by allowing a tracker on your mobile device, traveling to familiar places, or traveling with a friend. Again, the decision maker can later decide whether to remove these precautionary measures. Um, Risk can also be reduced by learning to problem solve or have a contingency plan. Decision makers can work with their team to practice problem solving and what they should do if a decision does not work out the way that they have planned. So again, that's just having the conversation, having open-ended conversations, or questions, and then also weighing the pros and cons, the risk of the decisions, and what the outcome could be. So, in continuing to develop these skills in decision making, we should also work on thinking through possible outcomes of decisions and what you might do if a decision does not work. Again, weighing the pros and cons and what could be the results. And if it doesn't work, what are we going to do from there? Uh, Learn which sources of data you can rely on, and those you can't. So we know we got AI and the Google, and we've got to be very safe on those areas because um, they may not. Google is a trusted source, but AI too, they have seen some faults in it, but it's all about research. Please forgive me. I haven't had my eye open. So they can also learn which sources of data. We've already gone over that. Please forgive me. And then practice evaluation, the urgency of the decision and the level of the risk. So if they have to make a medical decision, is it an urgent decision? And what are the levels of us making this decision or not? Pros and cons and the end results. So emotional intelligence and resilience. Emotional regulation supports decision-making skills. Name and reflect on your emotion and the response to the decision. Practice coping skills so decisions don't feel so stressful. Think about the impact of the decision on the emotions of others and how you want to consider these in your decision making. So we know that our people with disabilities come with a lot of medical complexities, and it can be challenging and it can be very emotional and overwhelming to make some of the decisions that have to be made in our loved ones' lives. But also, what are their emotions at that time? What are they feeling when we're having the conversation of the topic at hand? And where does it have them at? Should we take it slower, take a little bite out at a time? And if it's urgent to come up with these decisions, communication, Practice listening, as other people can give you new perspectives and ideas that could improve the person's disability, person with disabilities. Listen to them, actively listening to them. Sometimes we sit there and we hear folks, but are we actually listening? That's taking our biases and our decisions out of the picture and really supporting the person with disabilities. Practice a practice assertiveness to convey your decision to others, as well as who and what you want help on. So allowing the person with disabilities to be assertive and allow them to have, the space and time to talk about their decisions and when and what they want help on and if they want help. But be actively listening to the person with disabilities because ultimately it is their decision. And we have to honor that, and understand that sometimes they may not want help and sometimes they may want some help. So keep that in mind. Excuse me. It's never too early and it's never too late to support someone who wants to make more of their own decisions in their lives. So, my director, Eileen Crum, she gave me a motto that I stick by to this day because some guilt was still holding on to me as far as my adult son is concerned. But you can't hold yourself for what you didn't know, but you can continue to know, to grow and know what you know now. That was the helpfulest thing I could ever hear. It's not about what we didn't know, it's about what we know now. And how are we utilizing those tools and information that we have been learning to support our person with disabilities in our lives? So this is Ed Robert of the Ed Roberts Disability Building in Berkeley, California, which has a gambit of supports for our families and people with disabilities in living a long, independent life. So here he says, independent living is not doing the things by yourself. It is being in control of how things are done. Ed Roberts, disability rights pioneer, right here, and founder of independent living movement. He has a breathing device, space to talk. Like there's nothing that our loved ones can't do if they're not taught and shown how to build the skills. So decision-making goals for an IEP, you have an outline here, understanding the choices you can make, have both and good, bad consequences is an important part of being an adult. Including goals for decision-making skills is a valuable step towards readiness. I can understand the steps to effective problem solving. I can identify and label my emotions and understand how emotions can influence decision making. I can identify areas where I need assistance and seek help. I can participate in developing a plan to meet personal and academical goals. That is or academic, sorry, that is for the person with disabilities. And this is just a good start and how to start making goals for your IEP. These are some really good options. And the earlier, the better, because it gives our people with disabilities to build advocacy for themselves. So the learning standard, applying decision-making skills to deal responsibly with daily academic and social situations. Early elementary, identify a range of decisions that the student makes in school. Make positive choices and interaction with classmates. Late elementary, identify and apply the steps of systemic decision making. Generate alternative situations and evaluate their consequences for a range of academic and social situations. Let's talk about middle school, junior high. Analyze how decision-making skills improve study habits and academic performances. Evaluate strategies for resisting pressures to engage in unsafe, unethical activities. Evaluate personal abilities to gather information, generate alternatives, and anticipate the consequences of those decisions. Apply decision-making skills to establish reasonable social and work relationships. High school, late high school, analyze how present decision making affects college and career choices. Evaluate how reasonable decision making affects interpersonal and group relationships. These are just areas of ideas of what to implement or ideas that you can put into your child's IEP to help them begin learning supported decision making and advocacy for themselves. Students can create an I statement goals for any subject here in the same examples. There are some examples here. It's getting really little and hard for me to read. Let me see if I can. But you have the examples here. So supported decision making in special education. This comes from the state of Connecticut. Here is a QR code that you can click on and learn more ideas and things that you can do to start goals and any subject areas or school areas that you want to begin building those skills for your person with disabilities into your IEP. We have come to the end of our session together today. If you have any questions or concerns, you can reach out to the California State Council, as well, the SCDD. For any questions, you can reach out to us here at Family Resource Navigators, and someone will assist you with questions that you may have about how to begin supported decision making. If you're able to implement this with companion agreements, in which you definitely can. Conservatorship is one that's often pushed in the schools because they are not aware of other alternatives opposed to conservatorship, where we can support our children with disabilities, even with, again, companion agreements. So it's not as expensive, but those documents have to be often revisited. And the Notary Public will let you know when are those contracts ending and when do you need to update those. So again, thank you for joining me, and I hope you have a very pleasant day.